Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt.
Ultimately, what we're here to do is win.
From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today, the Padres take on the Chicago Cubs in Game 1 of the National League Wild Card Series. Our starting pitching matchup today: on the mound for the Cubs, left-hander Matthew Boyd, and for the Padres, right-hander Nick Pivetta. Hi again, everyone. Sam Levitt with you from Wrigley Field in Chicago. First pitch coming up at 12:08 p.m. back home in San Diego. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do. A jam-packed pregame show from the north side of Chicago. We'll hear from Manny Machado, today's starting pitcher Nick Pivetta, Jake Cronenworth, Mike Shildt, Cubs starter Matthew Boyd, and we'll check in with Padres radio voice Jesse Agler in just a handful of minutes. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations: La Mesa Vista and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres went 90-72 in the regular season, the team's second straight campaign of 90 wins or more. It's the first time that's been done in franchise history. The Padres ended the season very nicely, winning 7 of their final 8 games to finish the regular season. Padres were a great home team this season, going 52-29 at home, but they did go just 38-43 on the road. That is certainly something they will have to contend with in this series. The Cubs, meanwhile, went 92-70 in the regular season. They're led by second-year manager Craig Counsell. The Cubs were a great home team this season here at Wrigley, going 50-31 in this building. It has been a long time since these two teams faced one another. They played 6 games by the middle of April. The Padres won 2 of 3 here in Chicago. Cubs won 2 of 3 in San Diego. In fact, this pitching matchup, Pivetta against Boyd, it happened in 2 of those 6 games. We're going to have much more on these Game 1 starting pitchers as we go along in our pregame coverage. Of course, the winner of this best-of-3 series will head north to Milwaukee to face the Brewers in the National League Division Series. But first things first, we've got Game 1 coming up in just a matter of minutes. Here was Manny Machado, his thoughts on what it will take for the Padres to win this series here in Chicago.
I think ultimately it's about competing. You know, we got to go out there and play hard, play two good teams playing our best baseball we could possibly play, and leaving it on the field. You know, we could be as much as prepared as you want, but I know as a competitor, once you step onto that field, everything's game. Things could change instantly. So as much as you can prepare, you just got to be mentally ready to go out there and just compete.
Manny, Nick Pivetta on the mound for your team in Game 1. He signs in spring training, goes on to have the best year of his career. What has stood out to you about what Pivetta has brought to this group?
He's been awesome, man. I mean, it's just the type of guy he is. The energy he brings every single time he steps on that mound, it's great. You know, we feed off of it as a team. And, ultimately what he's done for us this year has been huge. So, you know, we have the right guy on the mound to go out there and play behind and go out there and try to secure and put ourselves in the best spot for Game 1.
That was Padres third baseman Manny Machado before today's game. The Padres and Cubs, of course, have met once before in the postseason. Padres winning the best of 5 1984 NLCS in 5 games. The Cubs won both games at Wrigley Field before the Padres reeled off 3 in a row in San Diego. The Padres are unbeaten in 3 wild card series all time, though only one of those series came on the road. That was a 3-game victory against the Mets in New York in 2022. Of course, the Padres won in 2 games against Atlanta last season as they went on to the National League Division Series. Padres trying to win their 4th wild card series in 4 tries as a franchise since the 3-game wild card series, the best of 3 wild card series, was instituted a handful of years ago. First pitch coming up at 12:08 p.m. back in San Diego. A beautiful day here at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The weather could not be better. The sun is shining. The grounds crew working on the field. It is not fall weather. It is summertime weather here in Chicago. A bright blue sky and should be a very warm afternoon for Game 1. Let's go inside the Padres radio booth and check in with Jesse Agler.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler. Presented by the San Diego Mojo. Major League Volleyball is fast, fierce, and unforgettable. Fans will be on their feet. This is San Diego Rising.
Well, Jesse, let's start with a look at the Padres starting pitcher, Nick Pivetta. Obviously, the best year of his career. He has exceeded, I think, every expectation you could have had when he signed in spring training. And no doubt about it, Jesse, this is the guy that belongs on the mound in Game 1. And quite frankly, if Nick Pivetta does what he has done all season, the Padres should be A-OK today.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are so many tough conversations and questions this time of year when it comes to rosters and lineups and pitching plans. And sometimes you get lucky and there's just an incredibly obvious thing sitting right in front of you. And I think that's what this is. I mean, there was never a doubt in the last couple of weeks that, presuming health, of course, that Nick Pivetta was going to be the guy Game 1 of a playoff series, whether it was here in Chicago, whether it was at Petco Park, whether it was a wild card, or whether they got a bye and went to the division series. It was always going to be Pivetta. That's the kind of year that he had, and you could probably summarize it without having to bang everybody over the head with numbers, which of course we will do, but you can probably summarize it by saying career high in innings, career low in ERA. He did everything you could possibly ask this season.
He did everything, and the Padres looking for a big start from Nick today in Game 1. Let's talk about the Padres leadoff hitter today, Jesse. Obviously, that's Fernando Tatis Jr. It seems to me like there would be quite a few reasons that would point to Nando having a big-time postseason. We start that answer here today.
Yeah, I mean, it's his time. He's one of those guys, and I know that can seem a little silly and everything, but 375 average, 6 homers in 13 career postseason games. And even if you didn't know those numbers, if you were just a Padre fan and you watched enough of Fernando Tatis Jr. the last 6 years, you know, you would be like, I got a sense he's a guy that likes the big stage. And there is no stage bigger than the postseason. And look, guys do get hot and cold over a long and sometimes arduous month of October. So I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, he's going to hit 500 for the entire playoffs. But he is the kind of guy you love on a stage like this. He's a guy that has proven he can do it on a stage like this. And whether it is home or road, he's a guy that feeds off the energy of a game like this. And we'll be playing games like this, hopefully, for next month.
Jesse, this is a Cubs lineup that can slug. They hit a lot of home runs for the most part this season. They were a good offensive team. They also run a lot, so they get it done with the power and the speed. Generally, what's your assessment of this Cubs lineup that Pivetta will face today?
It's really interesting because kind of a tale of two halves for a lot of their big-name guys. You know, they hit a ton of home runs in the first few months of the season, far fewer in the second half, although there were certainly signs the last few weeks of things ticking back up for them. Look, the wind is blowing in. That's always a conversation when you're at Wrigley Field. As Mike Shildt said yesterday, no place plays weirder than Wrigley Field does based on sun and wind. And as Fernando said today, the fans, when you're talking about the outfield. But, you know, it'll be very interesting to see which Cub offense shows up. And as you pointed out, and it's an important thing to point out, if they're not slugging, they do have the ability to get it done other ways. I think when all these guys are right, probably the best 1 through 9 in the National League, and maybe in all of baseball. I just don't know as much about the American League teams off the top of my head. Phillies obviously have some tremendous offensive talent in their lineup. Padres obviously a very deep lineup. The Dodgers a very deep lineup. But I think generally speaking, when the Cubs are right, 1 through 9, it's as tough of a lineup as there is in the National League. So it'll be fascinating to see which version of the Cubs is here the next 2, maybe 3 days.
Jesse, let's finish up with the Padres bullpen. That is a distinct advantage the Padres have against, I would say, every other team in this postseason. Their bullpen has been a strength all year long, still even without Jason Adams. So many high-octane arms. To you, how do the Padres best use that bullpen, not only today, but throughout the course of this series?
I think it's different every day, right? I do think there will be an opportunity there for Nick Pivetta to have, let's call it a normal start. Like where it would look the way it does innings-wise, in a regular season game, presuming he's pitching well. Obviously, if he's not pitching well, it'll be a quick hook because that's how it's got to go in the postseason. But I think if he's pitching well, they'll be happy to let him go into the 6th inning, maybe into the 7th inning, depending on the score of the game. The next 2 days could be different, more along the lines of, all right, we've gotten enough out of this guy. Let's now try and piece it together. I think particularly in Game 2, maybe also in Game 3, if you get 3 or 4 innings out of your starter and you think you have, better options in the bullpen the rest of the way, you might see that. All of this, of course, is subject to change. They're not going to script anything. They're not going to predetermine anything. It'll all have to do with the context of the game, the score. The offense will certainly play a part in what the Padres are able to do pitching-wise. But you're right. It is a strength, and it's something they're going to be able to use to their advantage at some point.
Jesse, very much appreciate the time. We will talk to you and Tony Gwynn Jr. coming up at noon, top of the hour. 11:55 a.m. in San Diego. Enjoy this one. Have a great call, and thanks as always for the time.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, that is Jesse Ackler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for today's game. First pitch is coming up at 12:08 p.m. in San Diego. When we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll take our first look at the Padres lineup, give you some things that stand out about the Padres roster for the wild card series set earlier today. All that and more coming your way as we get you ready from Wrigley Field in Chicago. Game 1 of this National League wild card series between the Padres and the Cubs coming your way on the Padres Radio Network.
The Jock in the Box.
Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Sam Levitt with you from Wrigley Field in Chicago as the Padres get ready to take on the Chicago Cubs. Game 1 of this 2025 National League Wild Card Series. Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Padres. Matthew Boyd on the mound for the Cubs. Padres lineup today looks like this. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field leading off. Luis Ariz at first base batting second. Manny Machado with third base batting third. Jackson Merrill in center field batting cleanup. Xander Bogaerts, the shortstop, batting fifth. Ryan O'Hearn, the DH, batting sixth. Gavin Sheets in left field batting seventh. Jake Cronenworth at second base batting eighth. And Freddie Fermin doing the catching and batting ninth. Of course, Fermin is doing the catching because Elias Diaz was left off the postseason roster. That was because he felt discomfort in his oblique over the final weekend of the regular season. So Diaz, who was on the field during the workout yesterday, he was left off the roster. The Padres are carrying 3 catchers. It'll be Freddie Fermin, who we expect to catch most, if not all, of the games this postseason until Diaz comes back, if he does at all. But the Padres also carrying Luis Campusano, and Martin Maldonado is back. So 3 catchers on this roster, Campusano, Fermin, and Maldonado. And worth noting, Freddie Fermin has not caught Nick Pivetta this season. You might know this, but pretty much exclusively, Elias Diaz caught Nick Pivetta this year. So that is a little wrinkle in today's battery. It'll be Pivetta on the mound, Fermin behind the plate. As far as the bullpen, just a couple of notes. Padres did include Michael King and Randy Vasquez in their bullpen for this series. It'll be Dylan Cease tomorrow in Game 2, Yu Darvish in Game 3 if necessary. From a starting standpoint, Yuki Matsui left off the roster, and Bradley Rodriguez, the young 21-year-old, was put in the Padres bullpen for this series. Let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt earlier today.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Served up by Sin Lee Food, where fresh meets flavor. Find farm fresh produce, bold Asian spices, and gourmet ingredients at 4665 El Cajon Boulevard. Sin Lee Food, the cook's Asian resource.
What went into Diaz, kind of where he is in terms of his readiness? Maybe obviously not this round, but potentially going forward. How is he feeling?
I think we're optimistic moving forward for next round, but yesterday worked out and was able to move around enough to where there was a conversation to say, okay, can he go or can he not? But once we, talked with medical and even spoke with Elias, he was pretty honest, disappointed, but honest, and said, listen, I don't know if I can really go and trust it. And we know we're at a point where he is with what he's dealing with, that he could really, be lost for the rest of the year. So, but we're also at a point where if he got some rest, there's optimism he could be okay moving forward. So that's the route we took.
What went into the decision then to carry 3 catchers, and how could that allow you to maneuver potentially?
Yeah. So, listen, obviously AJ, had the final call on it, and we spoke a lot about it and took a lot of opinions about it, and, landed where we did with 3 catchers and impacted Wagner, the left-handed bat. There's a lot of different ways this thing could go, but, we really primarily look at Freddie being the guy. Freddie's taken good at bats and played well. So that's part of that. Maldi obviously is, experienced guy that is a very defensive oriented guy that can, come in and take care of it if we need to. And then Campy can do it as well. But, Campy's more of a bat if we need something at some point.
Hey, Mike, I know you saw it on the other side in 2020, but what was it like last October seeing Tatis, he was still dealing with that stress reaction, really elevate his game in the playoffs, and what are you expecting from him along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it last year too. In 2024, he was pretty good and dominated. So on the other side in 2020, in the playoffs and the wild card series, he's a dynamic force. He just is, and he's the kind of guy that appreciates this moment. We had a lot of guys that as the lights get brighter, they shine more. So he's definitely the head of that class, and here we go, and excited to watch him go play.
Hi, Mike. I'm not suggesting you're all stressed out about facing the Cubs, but on the eve of the playoffs, like, what's the last thing you're thinking about the Cubs that makes them worrisome to play? What's the first thing you're thinking about in the morning about these Cubs?
I think we're in awareness. I mean, listen, they're in big picture, they're a good team. They're well managed. They're talented. They clearly have improved their bullpens as we saw them in April. They've got really good position players that can compete in a lot of different ways. But Boyd, the starter's very, very good pitcher. They got a nice ball club. So it's really nothing specific. There are specifics to things that we are aware of and how we're going to compete and think about managing the game. There's not one thing that goes, oh my gosh, let's worry about that in particular. I don't know if I'd tell you if there was anyway. But it's more the total, they got a nice team. We got to respect a lot of what they do. And, but we got to take care of what we can take care of.
Diaz has caught all of Pivetta's starts. What's the challenge with getting Fermin in there? And maybe what's the preparation been like for him to kind of take over?
I don't think it's a huge challenge. I mean, it's, even speaking to Nick prior to yesterday, listen, he's got a good working relationship with Diaz, but, Nick also said, look, I have thrown to other people before in my career. Freddie's, called a lot of guys. I don't think it's going to be a real challenge to, Nick can think and do for himself. Freddie understands the lineup, and I think they'll work really well together.
Mike, what went into the 14 position players and 12 pitchers, and did the fact that you're carrying 5 starters and have guys that can cover length do that? And also Bradley getting that spot, what helped him earn that?
Yeah, multiple things. Diaz impacted a little bit, taking a couple extra catchers. It was on the table prior. I know we talked about it even at the end of the regular season. Short series has something to do with it. We trust all of our pitchers. We got 12 guys. It was hard with Yuki because Yuki's really been a big part of what we've done the last several years. It compromises in this series, but moving forward, he'll, be in play. So, it was just a combination of the trust of the short series, the 12 guys we have, and the moving parts with the position players.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt earlier today inside the interview room here at Wrigley Field in Chicago. We'll hear more from Mike on our post-game coverage coming up later on this afternoon as the Padres play Game 1 of this National League Wildcard Series here in Chicago. Let's tell you about the player to bank on.
Which player's performance can you take to the bank? This is our player to bank on. Presented by Broken Yoke Cafe. Kick off your game day the right way with brunch on the sunny side at 15 San Diego locations. Download the BYC app to unlock a free short stack of pancakes after your first visit. Broken Yoke Cafe. Live on the sunny side.
Our player to bank on, who else but Fernando Tatis Jr.? I say that for 2 reasons. Number one, Tatis had a great finish to the regular season. In his last 11 games of the year, Tatis hit .390 with an 1139 OPS, 4 home runs in those 11 games. His power in September was notable. He hit 7 home runs in the month of September after hitting just 3 in a 58-game span from late June through the end of August. And the other reason, Tatis has been great in the playoffs in his career. In 13 career postseason games, he has a .375 batting average, a .1328 OPS, 6 home runs, 5 doubles, 12 RBIs, and 13 runs scored in those 13 games. That OPS of .1328 is the highest among active players in this year's postseason, with at least 30 plate appearances in the post. So between his finish to the regular season and what Fernando has shown us he can do on this stage, he is today's player to bank on. Another notable part of Game 1 of this wild card series, it's a little bit of a weird note, but it's true. Teams who have won Game 1 of the wild card series have advanced to the division series all 12 times since the current playoff format was introduced in 2022. So again, every team in this current format that has won Game 1 has gone on to win the series. So it goes without saying, Game 1, incredible incredibly important. Here was Nick Pivetta, Padres starting pitcher, on the importance of today's game.
Always important to get off to a hot start, but, it's not making things too big. Or, I think it's just going out, believing in my talents, believing in what I've done this year, and just going out and executing my game plan, and just, relying on my teammates behind me to make defensive plays and to put up runs and just to go through it like it's another night.
Nick, why do you think you've had, maybe the best season of your career, especially first year with a new team? Sometimes there's an adjustment period, but your numbers across the board are really good. Why do you think that has occurred?
I think we could get into a lot about that, but I think for me, it's really honing in on the fundamentals of the game. Making some slight adjustments mechanically and with how my pitching arsenal works. But just being able to consistently be in the strike zone, attacking hitters, getting ahead of hitters, and putting myself in advantageous counts, and being able to put guys away has led to success. And just being able to kind of repeat that over and over again. You see great pitchers in the game. One thing they have is consistency, and I was able to kind of do that throughout the whole season.
Nick, with this Cubs lineup in particular, what stands out so far in your prep about facing them?
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into my game plan with them, but just talking to them as baseball players, as people, it's a great organization, great hitters. They've had a good year this year, so you can't take them lightly. But I've had some experience against individual hitters and the team as a whole this year, so look forward to the challenge. But I think it's just making sure that I'm staying in at advantageous counts, getting ahead of them, and just putting pressure on them.
It's your first year with the organization, but this is a group that has a lot of postseason experience. What gives you confidence that this group can make a deep run?
Yeah, you can definitely just rely on your teammates through their experience, kind of like what you said. I don't have to do too much. These guys have been here before. They're here very recently. They have an understanding of what everybody's goal is in mind, and that's to win a World Series. So this is the first step, first game. But I think having that experience and being able to kind of hone in on that is really important.
I know it's about as long ago as it could be within one season, but you faced these guys. They were pretty patient with you. It didn't go extremely well that day. You haven't had a day like that since. Well, what did you learn from that one? What will you take into tomorrow?
Yeah, I watched that start back. I had a decent start against them earlier in the season at our house, and then kind of struggled. I think I got myself more into a trouble than I needed to. I was walking more hitters. I think I had bases loaded 3 times in that game. So staying out of those situations, like I said, getting ahead of guys, attacking the strike zone, allowing my defense to make plays, trying to get us in the dugout as quick as possible, I think will lead to success.
Nick, what's the prep like for a team that'll steal some bases compared to one that doesn't run that much?
I think it just goes into, we have our coaching staff who, tells us who the runners are, where they like to take off, what counts, how they like to steal bases. But I think it's just being cognizant of them being on base and mixing your times, making sure you're providing a quick delivery to the plate to give the catchers appropriate time to throw the runner out. But I think it just comes down to your game plan and understanding who the runners are and who the runners aren't, and just keeping a mental note in your mind as the game's going on. And I think the best key to success is not letting out anybody on base.
That was the Padres Game 1 starting pitcher, Nick Pivetta. Earlier here at Wrigley Field, Pivetta against Matthew Boyd, our starting pitching matchup. First pitch coming up at 12:08 p.m. back in San Diego on a beautiful day here in the Windy City. Let's take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Let's get to a quick note on a postseason team. The Red Sox will be without right-hander Lucas Giolito for their American League wildcard series against the Yankees. Giolito had been expected to start Game 3, but he now has an elbow issue. Bruce Bochy will not return as manager of the Texas Rangers after a 3-year stint that began with the team's first World Series title in 2023. The Rangers saying last night that the team and Bochy mutually agreed to end his time as manager of the club. He was apparently offered a front office role. The Twins firing manager Rocco Baldelli yesterday. That ends a 7-year tenure that included 3 AL Central titles and leading Minnesota to their first playoff series since 2000, or I should say first playoff series win since 2002. Giants dismissing former Padre manager Bob Melvin even after his option was picked up for next season back in July. So the Giants looking for a new skipper. And finally, Mets president of baseball operations David Stern saying manager Carlos Mendoza will return next year despite the Mets going through a 3.5-month collapse to miss the postseason. The Mets had the best record in the majors on June 12th. They went 38-55 the rest of the season and missed the 2025 postseason. When we come back, we hear from Manny Machado. A little bit later, we hear from Jay Cronenworth as we walk you up towards first pitch coming up at 12:08 p.m. Pacific time back home in San Diego. It's Game 1 of the National League Wild Card Series right here on the Padres Radio Network. Back here at Wrigley Field in Chicago as we get ready for Game 1 of the National League Wild Card Series between the San Diego Padres and the Chicago Cubs. Sam Levitt with you from the north side of Chicago. Crowd filing in here at Wrigley Field. Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Padres. Matthew Boyd on the mound for the Cubs. We'll take a look at the injuries in just a moment. Our keys to today's game. We'll also hear from Manny Machado and Jay Cronenworth in a bit as well. Join Ben and Woods, the Braden Soprenet Show, and Gwynn and Chris for a postseason watch party at Park 101 in Carlsbad on Wednesday. That's tomorrow to watch Game 2 between San Diego and Chicago. Park 101 is a bi-level sports bar with a rooftop deck and huge screens. There will be North County's best barbecue, craft cocktails, and we'll give away autographed baseballs. It's all presented by Estrella Jalisco Light Mexican Lager. Join us Wednesday at Park 101, located at 3040 Carlsbad Boulevard in the Carlsbad Village. Let's take a look at today's injury report.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, the big news of the day, the Padres without Elias Diaz. He was not put on the wild card roster after suffering an oblique injury, some tightness in that oblique over the course of the final weekend of the regular season. Ramon Laureano is out for the wild card series, at least with a fractured right index finger. That also happened last week, final week of the regular season. As far as the Cubs, two major things of note there. Kyle Tucker was activated over the weekend for the Cubs' final regular season series after being out with a calf injury for most of September. He went 1 for 11 in 3 games over the weekend against the Cardinals. Tucker is in the lineup, cleaning up and DHing today for Chicago. Cubs also without their terrific rookie starter, Cade Horton, who had a 1.03 ERA since the All-Star break. He certainly would have started the game in this series, but he suffered a rib fracture last week. So they're without Cade Horton. Kyle Tucker is in the lineup, and the Padres without Elias Diaz and Ramon Laureano. Here was Manny Machado on facing today's starting pitcher for the Cubs, left-hander Matthew Boyd.
Gonna watch some videos, see what he's been doing lately. Me and Matthew has been going at it for since 2009. We're on the same USA team, so we go way back. So but at the end of the day, honestly, to be honest with you, it's about competing out there. I know he's going to go out there and compete and do his best, and we're going to be as well prepared as we can. But at the end of the day, is just go out there and compete and leave it on the field. We know he's had obviously great career, great season, and we're just going to go out there and try to do our best.
That was Manny Machado, certainly a very, very important key to today's game in this series against the Cubs. Speaking of keys, let's give you our keys to this series opener.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Driven by Toyota Carlsbad, the one and only for over 50 years.
Key number 1, slow down Seiya. Cubs outfielder Seiya Suzuki finished the regular season on a tear. He hit home runs in each of his last 4 games, 5 total in that span. Key number 2, be A-OK against PCA. Pete Crow Armstrong had a great season for the Cubs, albeit he was a lot better in the first half than the second half. But PCA is a dynamic young player. This season, he became just the second player in Cubs history to have a 30 home run, 30 stolen base season, along with Sammy Sosa. He had 265 with 25 home runs in 95 games before the All-Star break, but he hit 216 with just 6 home runs in 62 games after the break. However, he did seem to find it at the end of the year. He had 2 home runs in his final 4 games of the season. Key number 3, manage the run game. The Cubs not only hit for power, but they like to run. They stole the 3rd most bases in the majors this season with 161 stolen bases on the year. So who are the guys to really watch when they're on base? Well, Pete Crow Armstrong had 35 stolen bases. Nico Horner had 29. Kyle Tucker had 25. Dansby Swanson had 20. Matt Shaw had 17. And all those guys are in the lineup today for the Cubbies. So you got to keep an eye on that when those guys are on base. Key number 4, Luis Arraez. Let's talk about him doing Luis Arraez things. Luis hit 383 with 8 runs scored during a 15-game hitting streak to end the regular season. Luis getting on base in front of guys like Manny and Merrill and Xander. That would be very, very nice. And key number 6, rely on the Padres' power arms. Mason Miller has thrown 21 1/3 consecutive scoreless innings. Last allowed a run charged to him on August 5th. Robert Suarez led the National League with 40 saves. Adrian Morejon, as we know, had a career year. He held lefties to a 148 batting average in just 1 extra base hit all season long. But as we know, very good against lefties and righties. And that's a look at our keys to Game 1 of this wild card series. Let's take a look at what else is going on around the wild card series aside from this one.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
We have one game underway, then two other games coming up later today. Tigers and the Guardians in game one in Cleveland, tied at 1 in the 6th inning. Red Sox and the Yankees in New York at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Garrett Crochet and Max Fried, the pitching matchup there. And at 6 p.m. Pacific, Reds and the Dodgers in L.A. game one there. Hunter Green for Cincinnati, Blake Snell on the mound for L.A. And that is a quick look at what else is going on in this wild card round as we begin the 2025 postseason. When we come back, we hear from Jake Cronenworth. That's on the way after this.
It's like you're either winning or going home. I don't know. I ain't trying to go on vacation yet.
That was Fernando Tatis Jr. earlier today as we get ready for game one of this wild card series in Chicago. The Cubs about to be introduced here at Wrigley Field along with the Padres. Cubs lining up on the third base line, the Padres lining up on the first base line. The team's about to be introduced. Let's tell you what to watch for in today's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in today's game? Can the Padres tap into their power? A big storyline for most of this season was the fact that the Padres were not a big home run hitting team, and that was a fair assessment. Padres finished 28th out of 30 teams in total runs during the regular season. However, if you watch this team lately, you know it's been different. The Padres hit 12 home runs in the last 8 games of the regular season. So the question here today in this series, can the Padres tap in to that power, get on the board via the home run. That's what's to watch for in today's game. I caught up with Jake Cronenworth as we get ready for game one.
I think this group we've been tested a lot. You know, there's a few of us who's been here for the postseasons the last few years and played on the road, and we played in some pretty good road environments during the regular season. So this group is ready.
You alluded to it, some really big road postseason wins for this core group. To you, what is the key to getting it done on the road in an environment like this?
Yeah, everybody I think would like to say take the crowd out of it early, but like it's the postseason. They're going to be in it no matter what. I think it's just play within ourselves, play our game, and let our preparation and work take over.
Obviously, this group has had amazing moments in the postseason. You've had disappointing moments in the postseason, but with all that said, it is a very experienced core group of guys that have had that postseason experience. What's your hope as far as how that can help you guys here along your path?
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, you alluded to it. There's a ton of experience here. We got world champions on this team. You know, guys who've gotten really close. Guys who've had that taste, and pretty much every single guy on this roster has. And I think for us, the experience, I think it's going to help us a lot.
When you think about Nick Pivetta, he's somebody who signed during spring training, puts together the best year of his career. What's your anticipation to play behind him in game one?
I think it's a lot what we've seen in the regular season. He's been our workhorse this year, and he's posted every single start for us, and that's all we can ask for him. And he goes out there and competes his butt off, and I don't think any of us expect anything less tomorrow.
This is a historic, unique ballpark. You have the ivy. We can already tell here on the workout day that the wind is swirling around. What is unique about playing here?
Yeah, obviously a lot of history in this ballpark. You got the ivy out there. You got the bleachers, the basket. Obviously, the wind can change at any point in time during the game, depending on if it's the first, fifth, or ninth. I think those are the unique factors here.
Jake, appreciate the time. Best of luck with this ride in the postseason, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Sam. Thank you.
That was Jake Cronenworth earlier talking about game one. Right-hander Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Padres today, 13-5, a 2.87 ERA and 31 starts during the regular season. Pivetta ranked 6th in ERA in the National League, 2nd in WHIP at 0.99, only behind Paul Skeens, third in opponent batting average at 195. He faced the Cubs twice during the regular season, once on April 5th in Chicago. That was one of his toughest starts of the season. 3 innings, 3 earned runs given up. He allowed a home run to Dansby Swanson in that game. His start against them in San Diego a handful of days later was a lot better. Left-hander Matthew Boyd on the mound for Chicago, 14-8, a 3.21 ERA and 31 starts this season. 2 starts against the Padres this year, 1 in Chicago where he went 6 scoreless innings, 1 in San Diego where he went 5 innings and a third with 2 earned runs given up. Boyd pitched in the postseason with the Tigers last year, 3 starts, 11 2/3 innings, just 1 earned run allowed. Pivetta has pitched in 1 postseason before. He had a 2.63 ERA in 3 games and 1 start with the Red Sox in 2021. As always, thank you for listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Your water should be perfect. Well, it's game 1 of the National League Wild Card Series between the San Diego Padres and the Chicago Cubs. Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois, the venue. Let's have some fun. Game 1 coming your way. Jesse Ackler, Tony Gwynn Jr. standing by. They have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game coverage. You're listening to your home for Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network.